Hey guys, we have to do predictions for UFC 207 Nunes versus Rousey. Currently going into this event on UFC Pick'em, I have a ranking of 283 overall for the year. Hopefully there will be a video in the description where you can see that ranking as well as my picks from the last several events going back to UFC 205. I hope that video will be there. But I will absolutely get my final ranking after this event. My final ranking for the year, I will get that on video, update you guys, and I'm feeling pretty confident about it. But if all goes well, hopefully I will have secured a ranking within the top 500 for the third year in a row. So that's my goal, and I will update you guys on that. Follow me on Twitter. My link is in the description at MMA Breakdown 0. But UFC 207, sorry for the late video again. I'm intend to get back on track with getting these videos out ahead of time, starting with the new year. I don't even know what the next event is, but I will be better about that. But UFC 207, I am pretty impressed by how competitive a lot of these fights seem to be, at least on paper, at least in my mind. Yeah, I think there are a lot of really competitive competitive matchups, and not a whole lot of them where I can confidently pick one fighter over the other. But let's do it. In UFC Fight Pass, a welterweight, Alex Oliveira versus Tim Means. I have to go with Alex Oliveira, mainly because of the wrestling. Tim Means, not so much since moving up to welterweight, but at lightweight, historically has struggled with the wrestlers. Lost to Danny Castillo and Jorge Masvidal, and even recently, a couple fights ago against John Howard at welterweight, was getting out wrestled early on before eventually getting the knockout. Oliveira, I think, will have the size and strength advantage. He is actually a few inches shorter than Means, according to Wikipedia, 5'11" versus 6'2". But Oliveira has been almost exclusively wrestling in his past couple of fights. Like against Will Brooks and James Montazeri, even took Cerrone down and got submitted. His only fights, which have been stand-up affairs, were Piotr Holman and Gilbert Burns. So I'm going to take Oliveira. I think that Tim Means doesn't have the takedown defense to keep it on the feet. If he can keep it on the feet, then I do think Means has the advantage, and pretty heavily. Oliveira, I think, is unwilling to get into long striking exchanges. Like I just mentioned, has really only exclusively wrestled his last several opponents. And Means, has big power. He's got great clinch strikes. Very sneaky with elbows and dirty boxing in the clinch, and has power. So I wouldn't like Oliveira's chances if he decides to strike with Means. Also, if he's not able to get him down, but just tries to clinch with Means. Like I said, Means is very dangerous there. But I don't really see why Means would be able to stop the takedown and keep this on the feet if he's still struggling against guys like John Howard, who are past their prime. So I'm going to take Oliveira to out-wrestle Means for a decision. All right, at welterweight, Brandon Thatch versus Nico Price. I have not watched any tape on Nico Price. I don't know anything about him, so we're going to have to skip past this one. Brandon Thatch, well, he seems to be a pretty capable boxer. It just looks like he can't grapple at all. After doing okay against Ben Henderson on the feet and getting taken down and submitted, and then same thing against Bahadurzadeh, had the advantage on the feet, but got taken down and submitted. It just seems like that's really a big hole in his game. But yeah, without having seen any tape on Nico Price, I can't make a pick for this right now, so we're going to have to move on past this one. That's the only fight on the card that I'm not going to make a pick for. At middleweight, Antonio Carlos Jr. versus Marvin Vettori. I think this is a lot more competitive fight than people might think it is on paper. I was actually going to go with Vettori here. You know, Carlos Jr. does have the UFC experience. He is a really strong and aggressive grappler, and seems to really physically overwhelm a lot of his opponents on the ground. And I thought that Vettori is a guy who could match Junior's his size and his physicality on the ground. I also thought on the feet he might have more to offer than some of Junior's previous opponents. But after rewatching his last fight with Uda, I don't think he has the technical grappling to hang with Junior. Carlos Jr. is really good at riding people and really maintaining control, whereas Vettori seems to be more of a strongman grappler. You know, against Uda, he got taken down pretty easily. He got right back up to his feet and ended up on top, but then Uda had him in a body triangle from his back, and Vettori was just content to sit there and couldn't, you know, didn't even try to do anything to escape it, to pass guard, and he really couldn't get off any effective ground and pound. I do think that Vettori's going to offer, you know, a lot more pushback than Junior's recent opponents, who really have not been that high level at all. You know, guys like Eddie Gordon, Augusto Guimaraes in his last fight. I think Vettori, you know, will offer more resistance on the ground, make this a tougher fight. But I think Junior is probably still the better wrestler and the more technical control grappler. You know, really good at riding guys. I think probably has a better takedown game than Vettori. So I am going to go with Junior, but you know, I do wonder about him after that loss to Dan Kelly. He had his, you know, moment early in that fight. Rushed him, got him to the ground, took his back, couldn't submit him. You know, he started that fight going 100 miles per hour, and in that second round, the wheels completely flew off, and he just fell apart. So if he can't submit Vettori and he gasses, Vettori's able to come back, maybe keep it on the feet, I could see Vettori, you know, turning it around and pouring it on and possibly finishing him. Another point I want to make is that Vettori is another a Venator fighter, and we just saw another guy from Venator make his UFC debut, Emil Weber Meek, and he got a win over Jordan Meehan, a guy who a lot of people thought had the technical advantage, and he certainly did on paper. And Emil Meek, like Vettori, another kind of a fighter whose game was really based on athleticism and aggression, didn't seem to have really the well-roundedness or technical game to hang with a guy like Meehan, and he won that fight without much trouble. I think this possibly could be another situation like that with Vettori, a guy who seems like you know, just a brute force guy without much technique. But I wonder about Junior's his fragility, you know, his durability, and you know, if he can really stay in the fight after you know, not getting an easy finish when he has his opponent in a bad position. So I think this is going to be a really competitive fight, but I think Junior, like I said, has the more technical grappling. I think he's going to wear out Vettori and win a decision, if not you know, grind him down and get that submission in the third round. So I'm going to take Junior, but I would not be surprised if Vettori is able to hurt him on the feet or just get top position and get off some good ground and pound and submit him. So this is a really competitive fight. All right, at welterweight, Mike Pyle versus Alex Garcia. This is just a really tough one because Pyle, his chin is really an extreme concern at this point. The way he just got starched by Alberto Nunes last fight was very surprising and concerning, and he's just very old as well. So athletically, we don't really know if that fight against Mina was just a one-off, or if that was if Mina's style allowed him to win in that way, and if Pyle is still athletic enough to get a win over Alex Garcia, who athletically should have a big advantage over Pyle, but technique-wise, not so much. I think if this fight stays on the feet, Pyle has the advantage. We've seen Pyle be able to out-savvy younger, more aggressive fighters like Sean Spencer, TJ Waldberger. Pyle is a good fighter. He's skilled, but that chin, he suffered a lot of knockouts over the years. Matt Brown, Jordan Meehan, Jake Ellenberger. Garcia, other than a couple of irrelevant wins early in his UFC career, has not really shown power, and he was put away in his last fight by Sean Strickland. So I don't know if Pyle's chin is really that far gone at this point. I think Garcia, a clean shot, could put out Pyle, but more than that, I think it's the wrestling. We saw Pyle out-wrestled by Colby Covington. Couldn't create any separation. Did have a choke at one point in that fight, but mostly it was him just getting put on his back and held down. And I think Garcia is going to take that approach here. That's the game plan he implemented against Mike Swick, but Garcia is not impressive. I don't think he really has a lot of skills other than being a big, strong guy with some wrestling and some power, but not really a consistent, high-volume striking game to make a lot of use of that power. And Pyle, he likes a dogfight, and if it's a war like against Sean Spencer, he can outlast guys in that kind of fight, and he has power. He's good in the clinch. He's got good knees from the tie clinch. So if he's able to keep it on the feet, I could absolutely see him outworking Garcia on the feet and knocking him out. I don't know. It's just he went down really easily to Alberto Mina, and I didn't see that coming at all. And Mina is not a guy who really made noise before that fight. I'm going to take Garcia for now. I think he gets it done with the wrestling. I think he wins a pretty boring, uneventful decision. Pyle can work off of his back. We saw that in the Rick Story fight. He can threaten with submissions. I don't think he would get a submission against Garcia, though. Should have a big strength and athletic advantage over him. So I'm going to say Garcia wins a decision with wrestling. But yeah, I'm really worried that this could stay on the feet, and then I do think Pyle's veteran savvy will get him the win. Garcia had a really competitive fight against Sean Spencer that went the distance, but he was hurt several times in that fight, and Pyle didn't have that much trouble with Spencer. So yeah, I would really like Pyle's chances on the feet, but I'm going to go with Garcia by decision. All right, at welterweight, Johnny Hendricks versus Neil Magny. This is going to be my most confident pick of the entire card. Going with Neil Magny, Johnny Hendricks. The old Johnny Hendricks is just completely gone, and there's no reason to think that he can come back for this. I think he said this is going to be his last fight if he loses. He just looked like absolute garbage against Kelvin Gastelum, who Magny dominated, and Hendricks is probably just a much lesser version of Gastelum. The same skill set, wrestle boxer, but I don't think boxes as well or has as good wrestling as Gastelum. So I'm taking Magny here. I think he has no trouble stuffing the takedowns or reversing the takedown attempts. He did that a lot to Gastelum. Gastelum really struggled with the length and the jab of Magny. I think Hendricks will too. If it was the old Hendricks, I would pick him against Magny. Magny still, while at times he is a very good grappler, can reverse takedowns and take the back, and has great control from back mount and deadly ground and pound from there. He can still be put on his back and struggle from there, like against Damian Maia, and I think Rodrigo de Lima was the other guy who got him down early, and also Kiichi Kunamoto took him down. So Magny, can be put on his back, and he can struggle from there, and also struggle with the power of Gastelum at the end of that fight. Getting dropped, and against Larkin in his last fight, couldn't get past the power. So the old Hendricks, I would take him, but that guy is completely gone, and I would absolutely bet that this is going to be the same Hendricks that showed up against Gastelum. So I'm taking Magny. I'm going to take him by decision. But if Hendricks really tries to wrestle with him, and Magny is able to take his back, I think he finishes Hendricks and pounds him out. But I'm going to take Magny by decision. All right, at flyweight, Louis Smolka versus Ray Borg. This should be an absolutely crazy back and forth scramble fest. Initially, I was feeling Borg here. I think he's the better wrestler, and maybe the better positional grappler, the guy who can maintain top position more effectively. Smolka against Holohan, that was a really back and forth grappling match. Neither guy really able to establish dominant position on the ground. And Borg against Kalades and against Herrera, it was really able to impose his grappling and his top position on them. But both guys are such good scramblers that I don't think Borg is going to hold down Smolka. Smolka showed some great transitions and scrambles against Ben Nguyen. And Smolka is just the better submission artist, I think, or at least better with threatening submissions. Both guys go for that, that guillotine from mount a lot. But Smolka just being the taller fighter, 5'9" against 5'4", and being a lot longer and using his length really well with chokes and attempting chokes and scrambles. I think he's probably going to catch Borg in a submission at some point, and I think Smolka's just too dangerous for Borg to try to out-grapple for 3 rounds. But I do think Borg is a slightly better wrestler. But I don't know. Now I'm thinking that Smolka should probably take this one because he is the more dangerous submission artist. So I'm going to take Smolka by submission. I'll say second round maybe, but it's a tough fight. Smolka, I think, lacks kind of... he doesn't have a game that's built to win decisions really at all. I think his only decision win in the UFC was against... was it Neil Seery? And Eltekin Oskilic in his first fight. But his striking is not good. Cariaso beat him, and Neil Seery was... or not Neil Seery, but Vasilik was well on his way to winning that fight. Just outboxing him on the feet. I think the striking will be a wash in this fight. I really think it's just going to take place on the ground because both guys, just grapple so much. But if Borg, I don't know, if Borg, really commits to trying to establish position, sit in Smolka's guard and not really open up too much on the ground with submission attempts or scrambles, I think he could probably win a few rounds, take a few rounds off of Smolka, and that's where I think that Borg's going to have a shot. But yeah, I think Smolka's just too dangerous and has too much size and length for Borg to survive for 3 rounds on the ground with him. So I'm taking Smolka by decision. All right. Welterweight Dong Kien Kim versus Tarek Saffiedine. I'm going to take Dong Kien Kim. I don't have too much to say with this fight. Saffiedine's a technical striker. Kim is chinny, though, especially when he gets really reckless and leaves himself open to being knocked out. Woodley just made him look like a fool, knocking him out mid-spinning back fist attempt. And Saffiedine definitely has the technical striking and the accuracy to connect, but Kim has seemed to kind of go back to his grappling roots in his last couple of fights, and I think if he does that here against Saffiedine, he should have no problem just getting enough takedowns and controlling him long enough on the ground to win rounds and win a decision, possibly even getting a submission. So I'm going to take Kim. And the other thing is that Saffiedine, while he's a very technical striker and incorporates leg kicks really well into his striking game, he's just very low volume, very content to sit back and really pick his shots to his detriment. I always remember that fight against Hyun-Gyu Lim, where he was clearly more skilled than Kim on the feet, had Kim fighting on one leg, and Kim still took him the distance, or not, Lim, still took him the distance and still made that a dogfight in the later rounds. Saffiedine is just not a finisher. It's just too low volume. It really works to his detriment. And also, Saffiedine is chinny. Got pretty brutally knocked out by Rory McDonald, and even against Jake Ellenberger, and he was pretty much in control of the striking the entire fight. Ellenberger cracked him right at the end of it. Rolled his eyes back into his head. So I think Kim, if he gets really wild like he's done in those fights where he was exclusively striking, I think he stands a chance to crack Saffiedine and knock him out. But I'm going to take Kim by decision. I think he gets it done with the wrestling and grappling. All right, at bantamweight, TJ Dillashaw versus John Lineker. I think this is a lot more competitive fight than people are making it out to be. I am going to take Dillashaw. I just think he is a lot more technical of a striker than Lineker. But more than anything, I think it's that footwork and those angles. That's something that Lineker has not faced in the UFC. And I think it's something that is really going to work against Lineker's style. John Dodson and some might have scored that fight for him. John Dodson in that fight did not use a whole lot of not a whole lot of dynamic movement, was not really cutting angles, pretty much let Lineker walk him back, and pretty much stood right in front of Lineker, and engaged with him in the pocket a lot. And Dillashaw against the Sun Tzu, while he didn't really connect with a whole lot of not much effect, he did control range. He was able to stay on the outside and counter a Sun Tzu pretty effectively, and I think that's what he's going to do to Lineker here. But it is really important to consider that Dillashaw is hittable. I mean, you even look at his fight against a guy like Joe Soto. He was able to be hit. Cruz hit him, and even a Sun Tzu in that fight. A Sun Tzu was able to connect and not put him in trouble, but he was able to hit him. And a guy who has as much power as Lineker, I think he's definitely going to connect on Dillashaw a fair amount in this fight. There's a chance he could knock him out. But I do think that Lineker just moves in straight lines too much. He's too flat-footed. That Dodson fight, both guys were pretty much flat-footed, and Dillashaw, if he fights the way he did against the Sun Tzu, really picking his shots from range and countering and switching up his stance and cutting angles, I think he's going to be able to outpoint Lineker for a decision. But Dillashaw, he doesn't really put guys away, and if he doesn't, put Barao away, but other than that matchup, which I think he really figured out Barao, and that matchup really favored him. But other than those Barao fights, is not really a proven finisher, at least against the higher level guys since becoming champion. And if he's not able to put Lineker away, and Lineker's in there, in the later rounds, and he really turns it on, I could see him kind of doing what he did to Dodson, just blitzing him and getting off enough big shots that win him rounds to win a decision, or possibly hurting Dillashaw late in the fight and getting the finish. But I'm going to take Dillashaw by decision. All right, at bantamweight, for the title, Dominic Cruz versus Cody Garbrandt. Initially, I was heavily favoring Cruz. I'm pretty much thinking that Garbrandt had no shot, and over the last month or so, for me, the odds in this fight have really narrowed, and I think Garbrandt has a much more significant chance of winning this fight than I initially thought, and I think other people are really recognizing that. And I don't know who the favorite is, but I think a lot of people might be favoring Garbrandt. For me, though, I have to take Dominic Cruz. Just the experience, the difference in experience, and the difference in just the well-roundedness. I think it's just going to be too much for Garbrandt to overcome, even though he is an extremely dangerous striker. He has big power, great hand speed. And I think that Cruz's foil, he's beaten all of these fighters who are dynamic and like Dillashaw and even Faber to a much lesser extent, but guys who really try to come with a versatile striking game. But I think Cruz's foil, could be a guy who has a basic striking attack like Garbrandt, a guy who's got big power, but a guy who has big power and comes forward, but has a really straightforward plan of attack. I think there is something to be said for that, even though it's not a game that technically matches up against Cruz's very elusive footwork and the angles that he uses. And Cruz can be hit. Faber, I gave him the first round in their trilogy fight. Thought he really rushed Cruz in the first round and came on strong. I think Cruz he got off to a slow start in that fight, and I think that's something that could hurt him here against Garbrandt. And Cruz was dropped at least a couple of times in the second fight against Faber. So Garbrandt's gonna have the opportunity to touch him. I don't think Cruz will finish him. Maybe by submission, because we just haven't seen Garbrandt have to fight on the ground really at all in the UFC. I think Cruz could take him down and maybe submit him. But I think very likely it's going to go the distance if Cruz wins. And that's going to give Garbrandt the opportunity to connect at some point. But I just think that there's a huge difference in the skill set here. Cruz has way more tools, not just being more elusive and being hard to hit and cutting angles, but the takedowns. Garbrandt has not had to face a wrestler. Cruz is elite. He's already, fought a ton of elite guys. Garbrandt has not fought an elite fighter yet. I mean, his biggest win is Takeya Mizugaki, maybe Thomas Almeida, and Dominic Cruz is just a huge step up from that. Cruz has already, fought guys who are more dynamic on the feet, like Dillashaw, even, Faber, who, I think has, as far as the full range of skill set, had more to offer than Garbrandt. Could wrestle and who has more of a harder striking game to figure out. And until I think it's possible, and I wouldn't be that surprised if Garbrandt gets a knockout. I just can't pick against Cruz until I see someone actually beat him. He's just proved time and time again that he's far too elusive, far too technical. Can mix up his wrestling with his striking seamlessly, and no one's been able to solve that puzzle yet. So I don't think a guy as one-dimensional as Garbrandt will be the one to do it. But I do think that how one-dimensional he is does give him an advantage in some regards here. But I think Cruz just keeps him guessing. I think Garbrandt's going to be whiffing on a lot of shots, which we saw against, who's the Brazilian that he faced a couple fights ago? Augusto Mendes. I mean, before he got the knockout, he was missing on a lot of shots, even against Mendes, who didn't want to engage with him. And I think, his opponents, Almeida and Mitsugaki, who were willing to meet him in the middle and stand in front of him, really made Garbrandt look really effective with what he does. But getting in there with an elite fighter like Cruz, who's been the champion for so long, and just confusing other elite fighters with his game, I think that's just going to be too big a challenge to overcome without really having even gotten his feet wet against any other elite fighters in the division. So I'm taking Cruz by decision. And then the main event for the women's bantamweight title, Amanda Nunes versus Ronda Rousey. Another really compelling title fight. I know everyone is, or I think most people are favoring Nunes, and I was too, just because of Rousey's her mental state, her loss, and how hard that seemed to affect her. The whole question of depression and the suicide talk, all of that. I just initially thought that she couldn't possibly come back from that and be in the right state of mind to to fight an elite fighter like Nunes, who comes at you from the opening bell and throws everything, and oftentimes gets that first round finish. I didn't think Rousey, with all of her problems outside of the cage, and after suffering such a devastating loss after being so confident and so dominant for so long, I didn't think Rousey mentally could come back from that to beat a Fire who's just on a roll, such a great roll, like Nunes. So I still think that's a huge question, and I think it could end up being the case that Rousey is just not in the right mental or physical shape to fight. But Nunes, as good as she is, as much as she's refined her really dangerous Muay Thai striking game, and she's dangerous on the ground too. Can submit after hurting fighters on the feet. I don't think that, for one thing, I don't think that she is going to be a long reigning champ in the division. There's a lot of turnover in that division, and Nunes has showed that she can slip up, whether it be her bad cardio late in fights, or even like in the Kat Zingano fight, where she starts off so strong and then gives the fight away. I don't think she's the kind of fighter who is consistent enough and defensively sound enough to really mix it up with other really dangerous fighters, fight after fight, and maintain a long reign as champion. And Rousey's an extremely dangerous fighter. On the feet, people have to recognize that. I know Holly Holm badly exposed her, but before that fight, Rousey, at least I was considering her one of the best strikers in the bantamweight division. At least she proved it. She was better than Tate and better than Correia and better than McMahon. So Nunes, as aggressive as she is, and not having the same style as Holm. Holm beat Rousey with counter striking from distance. Nunes doesn't have that same kind of counter game. She's going to be the one pressing the action against Rousey, coming at her. And while I don't think it's likely, I think there's a chance that Rousey could, connect in an exchange. We've seen the power from her against Correia, and even though technically she couldn't fight an outfighter like Holm, I think a fighter like Nunes, while Nunes is more accurate and has the more diverse striking game and is really powerful, I think there's a slight chance Rousey could connect. But more than that, I think that Nunes is just going to be in range for Rousey to latch onto her and get her to the ground. I don't think Nunes can, keep distance, create separation if Rousey's really intent on getting her to the ground. If she comes out looking to strike with Nunes, then I don't like her chances. I think she'll get finished pretty quickly. But like I already mentioned, the Zingano fight, Nunes hurt her and had her in mount, almost finished her, couldn't, and then ended up losing the fight. And she got put in mount and pounded out. So, if this fight hits the ground, I don't think Nunes, has the defense that Holm had prepared going into that fight. And I think Rousey will probably hit that armbar if it hits the ground. So I like Rousey by submission. Nunes, I think, might get over aggressive. And even if she doesn't, I think Rousey could probably close distance and take her down. And another thing, Rousey doesn't retreat into a defensive shell like the fighters that Nunes has overwhelmed in the first round, like Tate or McMahon. You know, those fighters could not exchange in the pocket. They couldn't fire back. Rousey can. And actually in the home fight, the reason she got knocked out was because she couldn't give up chasing the knockout. She was extremely confident throughout that fight while getting picked apart very badly, while getting hurt. She kept coming forward and kept you know, throwing with conviction, and while that led to the knockout against Home, I think you know, that style suits her better against Nunes. If not to knock her out, at least to you know, get close enough to get her hands on her and get her down. So I'm taking Rousey by armbar. You know, Nunes has just shown too many gaps in her game defensively, I think. But yeah, there's just a huge question of Rousey's mental state, given you know, all of the outside of the cage drama since her home loss. So I don't know. I think I would be very surprised if it goes past the first round. I think Nunes either finishes her in the first, or Rousey gets that submission. I could also see Nunes you know, hurting her, pouring it on, and Rousey surviving and you know, creating a scramble, or getting her arm in a scramble. So yeah, I'm taking Rousey. And another thing about that Zingano fight is that you know, Zingano was able to survive Nunes's blitz and then overwhelm her, or you know, then you know, reverse position and put her away. And I would never pick Zingano even today against Rousey. So I think that's another reason why I favor Rousey here. I think that fight's a good indicator, is that you know, a fighter much less dangerous on the ground than Rousey, a lot less technical of a grappler, was able to survive against Nunes and you know, turn the tide. I think Rousey definitely could do it, given her you know, her submission skills. So I'm going to take Rousey by first round submission, but really a compelling matchup, especially given you know, Rousey's you know, her outside of the cage issues. All right, so those are my UFC 207 predictions. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to check back after the fight to see my final ranking for the year on UFC Pick'em. Follow me on Twitter. Link is in the description at MMA Breakdown 0. And looks like the next event is Fight Night Rodriguez versus Penn, January 15th, which that is great. That gives us a couple weeks off, which I love. And that'll give me some time to put the video out ahead of time, so look out for that. But it's been a good year. Hopefully I will accomplish my goal, finishing in the top 500 for 3 years in a row, and hopefully 2017 I can do the same. And my goal for 2017 is just to be more consistent with the timing of my videos, getting them out earlier. And also doing recaps, maybe not for every single event, but at least the big ones. And also being more consistent with my updating you guys on my Pick'em ranking event to event. So those are my goals, but thank you guys for watching. Thanks for sticking with me this year, and I'll see you guys soon, and Happy New Year, and hopefully we'll have another good year next year. Take care, you guys. Bye.